Hello, welcome back to more of the final exam review for Math 201 Statistics. This is question number 8. It says, in a Gallup poll survey conducted November 19th to the 21st of 2004, of the 1,015 American adults surveyed, 569 stated that they believed that the U.S. was not winning the war in Iraq. Find a 95% confidence interval estimate of the percentage of all American adults who believe that the U.S. is not winning the war in Iraq. So because they're asking us for a confidence interval, so that's good to know. We're going to need that formula. And they want us to estimate the percentage. So we're dealing with proportions. And so that means we're going to be using the Z normal distribution. Those are some first things that you should be looking at. Okay. And so we're going to need to find P hat. P hat is X over N, which is going to be 569 over 1,115. And then we're going to need to know the Z of alpha divided by 2. And they want a 95% confidence interval, so alpha is 1 minus 0.95 or 0.05. And so alpha divided by 2 is 0.025. So we need the Z of 0.025. So 0.025 is not my Z. That's just telling me the area that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go to the formula packet that I encouraged you to print out. It's at the bottom of the modules by the final exam review, because it's going to have all the formulas that you're going to need. So here's the one sample proportion formula that we're using. I'm going to show the program in Desmos just for practice. And then we're looking at 0.025. So if you take this column right here where my mouse is and go all the way to the bottom, we're looking at the Z, because everything else in that table are for T and degrees of freedom, but we're using the Z, which is the very bottom row, so 1.96. Okay, so this is the formula, P hat plus or minus Z times the square root of P hat times 1 minus P hat divided by N. But I am actually going to use the program in Desmos for proportions. It should say confidence interval proportions one sample. I would suggest saving that on in your Desmos, just so it's handy. I have put this link in the final exam for you to use. And so our N is 1,015 and P is 569 divided by 1,015. Now, I didn't know what, oops, that's divided by, I didn't know what that was, so I just am going to let Desmos calculate it. So my P hat is 0.56. And I don't need to put P0, that's only for the hypothesis test, but I do need to tell Desmos my alpha, and my alpha is 0.025. Then I am going to the drop downs. So there's drop downs here for hypothesis testing, but I'm choosing the one for confidence interval. And then I'm going to go to my lower and my upper. So my confidence interval is 0.526, 0.596. Now I want to show you, if you do it by hand in Desmos, you're going to get the lower bound at 0.5301, which is what the answer key says. So that's where, don't be alarmed if it's off by a few decimals from the answer key if you use the program in Desmos. Now, letter B says, without any work, would a 90% confidence interval for the population be larger, smaller, or no different? Well, because I'm going to lower my confidence from 95% to 90%, it's going to be smaller. Okay, letter C says, If you want to conduct your own study about people's views about whether America is winning in Iraq using the Gallup poll as a prior study, how many people should you poll so that you have a 98% confidence with a margin of error of only 4 percentage points? Okay, so it's like, what is it asking me for? It's talking about a confidence, but it's not, I don't have information to do a confidence interval. It is saying how many people would I need to poll? So it's asking me for sample size. Okay. So I'm going to go to my sample size formulas in my formula packet. And here they are. So for proportions, I have two choices. I have one with a prior estimate and one without a prior estimate. So it's asking us for proportions, and I'm going to go with the prior estimate because I'm going to use the data from up above. My prior estimate is my p-hat of 0.56. So I'm going to use the formula on the left, and I'm going to write it down and show it to you here on my paper. I'm using this formula for sample size, and my prior p-hat is 0.56. So I've got 0.56 times 1 minus 0.56. And my z of alpha divided by 2 is going to be my z. So alpha is 1 minus 0.98 or 0.02. So my z of alpha divided by 2 is z of 0.02 divided by 2, which is 0.01. So I need to find that z in my formula packet. And then I'm going to put that up on top. And I'm going to divide by error, and they wanted us to keep it at 4 percentage points. So that's 0.04, because I have to turn that into a decimal, and it's going to get squared. Okay, so let's go back to the formula sheet. And I'm going to look up 0.01. So 0.01 is right here. And I'm going all the way to the bottom, which is 2.326. And let's go to Desmos and type this in. So it is 0.56 times 1 minus 0.56 times 2.326 was the z that we just found, divided by 0.04. And then I'm squaring that. Oops. And squaring my fraction. So we get 833.2. But we have to remember that we always round up. So n is going to be 834. My sample size for number 8. Now, letter D says, suppose that a spokesperson for the Democratic Party made a claim before the election that more than 52% of Americans believe that the U.S. is not winning the war in Iraq. Test their claim with a 0.01 level of significance using the Gallup data as your sample data using the p-value method. Okay, so our step 1 is our hypothesis statement. And because we're testing proportions, we're using P as our letter. And so we think P is equal to 0.52, but they think that it's more than 52%. So it's going to be greater than 0.52. Then step 2 is alpha. Alpha, they said, was 0.01. And then my test statistic is going to be a Z0 test statistic, and that's going to come from the program, so we can use that. And then step 4, we're just drawing our picture. It's a greater than, so it's going to be over here. And step 5, it says use the p-value method. So we're going to get the p-value from the computer program, and we're going to compare that to alpha of 0.01 and decide what our outcome is going to be. I'm going to my computer program for proportions where we did a confidence interval. And the cool thing is all the information's in there. We're just going to go back to the P0 and we're changing that to 0.52 because that's what we're going to test against. And now I'm not going to look at the confidence intervals, but I'm looking at the greater than on the testing. And there's my p-value of 0.0048. I'm going to write that on my paper. And then my test statistic, I am going, it's up here, Z, and it's 2.588 or 2.59. And so if I go back to my paper, my test statistic is pretty far out and my p-value is right here and my p-value is less than alpha. So we do reject H0. So that tells us that there is sufficient evidence to support the claim. That more than 52% believe the U.S. not winning the war. And remember, that was the Iraq War. That was back in 2004. So catch me back for more videos from the final exam review.